My son once blamed the cat for breaking a lamp. We didn't even have a cat at the time. And honestly, I wasn't even really mad because I knew that I was looking at a child that was trying to avoid getting in trouble, and I knew that he still needed some skills to be accountable. But kids lying and not taking accountability and not owning, it makes parents crazy, right? It kind of makes us crazy when anybody's like that. But the thing is that accountability is not built in. Our kids don't necessarily come with that. It's taught. And the kids that are neurodivergent, they have to actually be taught these skills more than just absorbing it. So they struggle with impulse control, emotional regulation, social awareness, and we have to teach it very intentionally. So today we're going to talk about what accountability really is, why it's so important, especially for our complex kids, and how to teach it through honesty and boundaries and natural consequences and integrity. And I've got some stories and some real life tools that you can. So what is accountability? Let's break it down. Accountability is the ability to recognize what you did, acknowledge the impact, and take steps to repair or change the behavior. I'm going to go through that again because I think it's so clear, and yet it can be so difficult. And I want you to think about yourself or other adults and who you know that is good at this, because I think it takes practice even as adults to be good at this. So recognizing what you did, acknowledging the impact, and taking steps to repair or to change the behavior. It's 3 parts. It's not just about owning our mistakes, it's starting to learn how our action affects others. And I think that when we're working with neurodivergent kids or any kids, like, we have to teach that rather than just expecting them to know. Like, we want them to feel all the feels, but they may not be able to do that, but they can learn the actions. Accountability can feel like shame if we don't approach it well. And that shame isn't going to help if we're just heaping on shame, like, you always do this, or you make me feel this way, or can't you see how hard you're making it for everybody in the family? All of that it doesn't go anywhere good. We have to teach it in a way that builds self-worth, because if we don't build a person's self-worth in how we're teaching things, they're only going to learn to a certain point, because fear can only take us so far, and shame really stops us. For neurodivergent kids, especially those with ADHD, autism, anxiety, or trauma histories, it just doesn't come naturally. So if you're frustrated with it because you feel like you've been teaching it, nobody's lying to them, all of these kind of things, just realize that they may freeze, they may lie, they may melt down, they may shut down instead of taking responsibility. And it's not because they don't care. They don't know how to deal with that, and they don't know even how to show that they care or what it's doing inside of them, because they don't know. They just don't know. The emotional skills that are required to be accountable, things like reflection, impulse control, perspective taking, those are under construction, and those are skills that have to be built. They're all executive functioning skills that, for any of our kids that are neurodivergent, there's some problems there. Even with typical kids, this still has to be taught, but I want to especially make it clear that with our challenging kids, this is one of the challenges. So why does it matter so much? Well, because accountability is foundational in relationships, in learning, and independence. And children who understand accountability are going to be so much more likely to build trust in their relationships. And this is such a big thing in our families. A lot of times we don't feel like, we need to hold our kids as accountable about things that happen in the house, because they're not doing it out there in public. Like, they may be taking things out of out of other people's rooms. They may be breaking their toys. They may, lose things like that. And we just kind of feel like, okay, well, at least at home, they're not taking anything, or they've never taken from anybody else. But we have to show them how we build trust, and it's so important. These things are critical in that. We have to show them, they have to learn from their mistakes. They have to know how to learn something from their mistakes. And it can't be like, it just can't be very heavy laden with guilt and shame. Navigate hard moments with resilience, to know how to work through something, to know how to make a repair. to be seen trustworthy by parents and peers and eventually bosses and partners. This is a really big thing. If you have neurodivergent kids, or kids that just think differently, or kids that are always squirming their way out of trouble, you really want to work with them on how they can build trust, rather than just like, I can't trust you, or them yelling at you, you don't trust them. It's like, right, because it is the responsibility of that person to learn how to build trust with people. We shouldn't just trust our kids just because they're our kids. Like, we have to build that, right? For neurodivergent kids, it's super important because they're often misunderstood, and we're kind of quick to judge them as defiant, disrespectful, lazy, liars, all of these terms that don't serve them. But as we teach them accountability, it shifts their narrative too. They're not just the hard kid. They become the kid that can own it and try again. And that's what we really want. And also, that negative self-talk when they make a mistake is also part of executive functioning. So they don't know how to make a mistake and not become completely unraveled by it. And so they either will shut down and lie or avoid, or they have big explosions when they're embarrassed because they made a mistake. So I worked with a girl that would lie all the time. She would just say, it wasn't me. When everyone saw her do it, she could be holding something in her hand and say, it wasn't me. And everybody kind of saw her as manipulative. But actually, like, if we can recognize the fear and the inability to kind of be reflective, like, and what's actually going inside of their head. What we found out is we realized that, and stopped taking it like you're not in trouble. We shifted it. We're going to help you to practice this. And so making her like being more open to what was going on inside of her head. Like, she was not supposed to go into her sister's room, and we would often like find her in the room, getting something or doing something. And we started realizing that in her mind, she wasn't going in the room, like to just go into the room. She had to get something, or there's the way her mind thought about it. So we had to help her to practice, like, but where are you standing? And show her, like, this is the doorway. You can't go past this doorway, even if it is to get something. So sometimes it takes we have to kind of to figure out how their brain is thinking about it. They may be holding the cookie, and we may say, like, why are you eating a cookie before dinner? It's like, I'm not. It's like, you have it in your hand. That's more, aprio, I guess. At first it's going to be messy. And but one day she admitted it. Like, I took the toy, I was mad, I broke it, and it was like, okay, great. Now we can work with that. We praise the honesty, and then we can work on the repair. And she started to believe that telling the truth doesn't mean that I'm going to lose people's love. It doesn't mean I'm in trouble. We're a work in progress here. And so we're teaching here. This is not behavior control. And this is how we build safety in ownership and in accountability, that we can trust the people around us. If we want someone to hold us accountable, it's because we trust them. We know that they have our best interest at heart, and they may call us out, but we're safe. And a lot of our kids have a lot of high levels of anxiety, and they don't really feel safe, and that's why they have such a hard time really trusting that we're there for them, even if you have done nothing to break that trust, even if you've been there from the beginning. So teaching honesty without shame, I want to talk about this. Make it safe to tell the truth. You want to praise honesty even if it comes with a mistake. Avoid using honesty as a trap. Are you sure you didn't do that? If you know the truth of what happened, then lead with the truth of what happened yourself. Don't ask questions that lead people into a trap. Kids hate questions to begin with, for the most part. And so if you know, like, I saw the candy wrapper in your room, do you want to tell me about it? Or you can just do whatever you're going to do about it. It's like, I'm going to put the candy away because I don't want you eating it in your room, or whatever it is you're going to do. You don't have to make it a big drawn out thing where we set our kids up to be dishonest. Instead, you might say things like, I'm always going to be proud of you when you tell the truth. And it's always going to be hard, but to tell us what happened. but I'm proud of you for trying, and we're going to work together on how we fix this. So we have to be really clear about that. Also, we have to really model this. And this is, I think, one of the hardest things in parenting is you have people watching you. They know. I remember when my kids were teens and we started really, I think like preteens and teens started really working on being upfront and honest. And they called me out on the fact that I would, like, when we'd go to the movies, we'd sneak candy in and stuff like that. And they were like, well, why is it different to sneak that and yet not sneak like a pass for someone, or something like that. So we had to really watch what I was doing. They need to hear you say things like, I shouldn't have yelled, I felt overwhelmed, and I'm sorry. Where you take it, I am frustrated and I'm sorry, I need a minute, rather than you're making me frustrated or you're doing this to me. You're modeling your accountability for your own buttons being pushed, your own triggers, and you're modeling what you're going to do about it. You can say, I'm really sorry, I told somebody I would do something and I forgot, and now I have to make it right. That normalizes mistakes, but it also models what repair looks like. It's so important. I hope that this is making sense for you, because there's work to be done with our kids on it, but I find it's part of our human experience to do this work in ourselves, to always be building our character and developing better boundaries and habits and things like that. So don't feel alone, like, oh my gosh, I'm like the worst person ever. It's like, no, like we're all in this journey of learning how to be better humans. Accountability thrives in clear, predictable structure. That means boundaries. And boundaries tell kids that what's okay and what's not okay, and what will happen next, and that you care enough to guide them. And if you need more help with setting up boundaries and what that actually looks like, because if you've worked with me at all, like, I'm not like talking about consequences that are outside, like that we're trying to figure out, that we need things that matter in the moment and help us to be teaching and not just punishing. So your child, for example, like if your child draws on the wall and the boundary is that we only draw on paper, then the natural consequence is going to be that they have to help clean it up. It's like, that's not okay. We need to scrub it. And the follow-up may be helping them express whatever it is, anger, boredom, in a different way. It's like when you're upset and you want to scribble, this is okay to do this. But if it goes here, that's not okay. We have to just make it right. Also, it needs to happen in the moment, because our kids that are neurodivergent, there's now and not now. And if it happens, weeks from now, they have a really hard time, or we want to do something to teach them a lesson or to make them see how bad it was, so we leave it up. It doesn't, that's not going to work. We have to deal with it right then. There's no vague threats. If you don't behave, I'm taking everything away. That's not going to help. You never learn. And these are all coming from places of our own frustration. And that's okay to be like, oh, that really frustrates me that you did that. And I need to take a minute for that. And then how we're going to address it. Know ahead of time how you want to address some of these things. And if you need help from a parent coach, that's totally valid, right? Because it's not always easy. I mean, it's terribly hard in the moment. That's when we come up with things like, you're going to be grounded forever, or I'm taking away your phone and you may never get it back. Those kind of things that happen. You want to offer consistent follow through that also shows them respect. You hit, so you're going to need to take a break. Let's come back here and we'll try again when you're calm. You left your bike outside, so now it has to stay in the garage, and you're not going to be able to use it tomorrow. So it's just, setting things up that make sense rather than, not being consistent, because that consistency and the predictability reduce anxiety and it increases the trust in your leadership. I had a family I worked with whose son always blamed his sister. If something spilled, it was her fault, or even other things, like if his hair wasn't the way he wanted it, or his clothes weren't right, it was the hairbrush's fault, it was the belt's fault. So it was, something else's fault all the time, just blaming. So we have to really shift our approach. Instead of lecturing, it's saying, I know it's hard to take responsibility. We're going to help you learn, and teaching him to say, I made a mistake. I'm not able to comb my hair today. I can't get my belt on the right way. I broke this toy. I need to know if I can fix it. Now, they're not going to be able to just do that because you have one conversation with them. You have to teach them this. You have to practice it yourself, because watch how many times you are mad at somebody else about something. Oh, they're making me so mad, or instead of just like, wow, that hurt my feelings, or that I feel frustrated, taking that ownership. So over time, this child started owning before being asked. But it's not going to happen through punishment. It's about growth. And we have to do things that help our kids to grow and expand. And punishment and shame and belittling, kind of, out of our frustration, stunts that growth. It makes it harder for them to change the way that their brain is wired. And they can make the changes. So let's talk about integrity. That is doing what's right when no one's watching. Integrity is the long game. It's not about catching them being good. It's about helping them feel good when they're doing the right thing. And it has to happen when they're doing the right thing, when the stakes are not very high, so that when the stakes are high, they will lean into integrity. So here's some ways that we can build integrity. We celebrate small wins. You told me the truth, even though it was hard. That's real strength. I had a family that a child had stolen some things, and the child wrote a letter of apology, and then they went with her to go return it. And that leaves the consequences in someone else's hands, which was scary for everybody involved. But we're celebrating the small wins. Good job writing the letter. Now we need to go make this right by returning the items and facing the consequences, and being admitting that's so hard, instead of saying it was hard, but you deserve it because you did it and you were wrong, and going on and on about how they were wrong. As they start to move towards making it right, we have to be encouraging about that. If we keep coming in with the fact that they did the wrong thing, they're not going to want to own their mistakes, because the mistakes just keep compiling and adding, and they never go away. As soon as somebody turns the other way from what they were doing to doing the right thing, we're right there, encouraging and giving that support. Use stories, books, movies, to show, to ask questions like, what would you have done? And what do you think? What do you think should happen? What should they do about it? You can ask what do you think the consequences should be? Or, just give them the space to make those decisions. And it doesn't mean, this is a big piece too, because the thing with integrity is, and being honest and owning, is that we are owning our action, but we don't get to dictate the consequence. And so the consequence already is in place with most places, like schools and, kids taking things from stores, all of that. They already have their policy. What is your policy at home? If this happens, then what happens? And make sure that you have some basics of that, how you're going to teach, how you're going to repair. And then you're helping them to do that, but they don't get to decide well, I don't think that I should be, that it should be like this, or I want to negotiate the terms of my, consequences, right? I think I admit that I forgot my coat, but you should come bring it to me. Kids want to have control of all of that. Sometimes we do too, but we don't get to decide that part. So creating family values. In our family, we make repairs when we mess up. It's okay to say we're sorry, but we also have to make it right. Let them see you live it out, guys. You break a promise, own it. You said something unkind, go back and fix it. Not in a, woe is me, or I'm the worst parent ever. You don't want them to say that either. We want them to just be able to own it and move on. And it's so good for their self-esteem and their sense of empowerment. Your example is way more powerful than any lecture. You are their model. Your child will not get this right all the time, and neither will you. Neither do any of us. We are all having our human experience here. But if you model honesty, hold firm boundaries with love, and show them that mistakes are part of being human, you're doing the work that changes lives. And I think especially to look at it like all of these things have to be taught, and especially for your neurodivergent kids. And they're not taught by the punishments. It's the whole process. It's when the world tells them that they're too much, that they're too reactionary, that they are too defiant, all of these things, like, you get to be the one to show them how to slow down, how to reflect, how to make it right, and how to try again. Avoid those things where you're feeling like, okay, well, you're never going to be with those friends again because you can't make the right choices, or blaming it on the friends. Like, these are bad friends. Maybe they are. Maybe it does call for them to not be around them. But look at what your child did and help them to learn how to stand against the tide and how to stand for their values, and teach that. And if they can't, then yeah, we have to protect them from just going with the crowd and being impulsive, right? That's accountability. That's integrity. And that's the kind of human that you're raising. And that matters more than any sticker chart ever could. Thank you for joining me today, and we'll talk later. Leave your comments in the